archive, which is in the archive, but it will be, show that I'm doing because I am taking my birthday off, and I'm taking the last 2 weeks of April off, and I'm going to just kind of reset my battery and just get out of the looping. When I say looping, it's just, when you're doing radio, it's a lot of dedication. I mean, I'm very dedicated. I'm always here. I'm very consistent. I'm always, I always have guests. I'm very good at what I do. I mean, I'm very loyal to people. It's one thing people always know about me. I'm always the one that shows up, I'm always the one that's there. Unfortunately, that's bad because a lot of people don't have that kind of responsibility, and then I'm always the one picking up the pieces. I need to take a break and take care of me sometimes, and I realize that that has to be done, especially where I've come from because I've been through a lot. And I really just at times I feel like I just need to go relax on the beach somewhere and just chill and, just relax, I miss Maui quite a bit. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I moved back there, to be honest with you guys, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with that one. So anyways, let's see. What else do I want to cover tonight? We did touch on electronic possession, which, of course, is man's version of whatever you want to call it, possession of something, a demon. If you really want to get into demons, a daemon, they're neutral spirits. That's all there is to it. So they're not necessarily evil per se. You have to really look at that from a different perspective. Everybody has the potential to be a host for an entity or for some kind of a what I call a hack, an artificial intelligence brain hack, remote access hack. So you have to understand that as well. Everybody's a conduit, transmitter, and receiver. And I've mentioned that several times over. So it's not unusual that people can be accessed. It really isn't. We are wired for that. It's just a matter of people having integrity. I think the biggest thing is actually understanding how to psychically deflect things, and psychically on an energetic level, but also on a technological level. Because once we master this, once we master the technological counters, they can't be pulling this crap on us anymore. And, I mean, I can tell you a lot of people have died due to the duress of these tactical assault programs. A lot of people have been murdered, remotely murdered, and that's wrong. So we've got to get a grip on this. We've got to get the technological blocking systems set up so that they don't do this anymore to anybody. It's okay to ascend and work together. Like I said, I don't have a problem interfacing with machines. I think they're kind of cool. And I actually thought it was cool on several occasions. But what they're doing with their personal spin and psychotronics and psychological warfare is wrong. And it's what it reminds me of the Nazis in the old days where they're trying to use mind control and screw with people. It's just disgusting. It's filthy. It just turns me off completely. So, that's where I drove the line on a lot of that crap. So, but anyways, we do have the potential to deflect these things. I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of scientists, a lot of developers. I'm trying to get people awakened to the point, these guys who have a big influence and big money, to understand that we need to do something about this. And I think they're scared too because they are kind of in with the mainstream big corporations. And I'm not going to mention the names of these people, but they don't want to ruffle the feathers of their handlers or their feeders, people that feed them because, they don't want to create the conflict. But I'm thinking, you've got to do something. We can't allow more lives to be lost like this. This is wrong. So, use technology with wisdom, use it with enlightenment, and don't play the Judgment Day and psychological warfare games. What they call threat assessment is another thing that I mentioned. I touched on that briefly. Michael J. Mossbach was involved in threat assessment management. And if you know anything about it, it's really asinine. It's actually a mind game because what they'll do is push and push and push a target with psychotronic warfare, and when the target rejects them, they call them a threat. Now, what does that sound like? Have you looked around and seen what's going on in the corporate America in D.C. right now, where they're calling regular civilians who are wanting to empower themselves and don't like the deception and the criminal agendas, they're calling them threats, and they're not. You have to see where this is heading, right? So, once again, it's like the criminals are turning their swords against the innocent, and that's wrong. And, of course, I stand up and I talk about that, and I'm, obviously it's not appropriate, and they need to get their act together and stop that. And will they? No, of course not, because they've been getting away with their war crimes for a very long time. But the more that people are awakened to it, the more difficult it is. What I've always said as a martial artist is make them work for that. If they're going to hit you, if they're going to strike you, if they're going to try to take you down, you have to make them work for it, okay? Don't just let somebody hit you. Don't just let somebody strike you. Make them work for that shot. And I remember that because one of the first things I was taught in martial arts training, free shots, man. Nobody gets a free shot. You have to work for that. If you want to take me down, you're going to have to work really freaking hard to do that, buddy. That's really my mentality, and that's a good mentality to have. So anyways, I think a lot of this, when I look at the world itself and I see all these obfuscations and smoke screens and false realities and false matrices, I look and it reminds me of that movie Dark City, where everything was reset at midnight, I believe. If you haven't seen that film, I'm sure it's one of those classic sci-fi, very good film. But it does kind of remind me of how everything is set, that there's these controllers they don't have any real power, but they just have access. And a lot of people are not informed. But, what I don't want to see is everybody having access to a weaponization of a technology where everybody's having these wars, psychological wars, psychotronic wars, tactical wars. It's not good. I mean, we've got to get this filthy agenda and this filthy way of controlling people out and off the real full light design. I mean, we just can't keep it anymore. It doesn't serve anybody. I mean, it really doesn't serve anyone. I don't even think it serves people as a training exercise, to be honest, but that's just something that I see. Now, you obviously have natural multidimensional design and mastery. We are multidimensional beings, which I like to remind people of. So do keep that in mind, that you're not just linear, you're actually multidimensional. And with that comes multidimensional sight, psychic vision. Once you learn and understand the path of mysticism, psychic energy, you'll be understanding how you can see beyond the veil. You'll have a radar that's fine-tuned, and you'll start tuning in more and more to the higher frequencies. When you tune into the lower core stuff, the lower astral, it's boring. It's a junkyard. It's really not beneficial to you. That's where disease-causing factors exist. So I would say to you, shoot for the higher frequencies when you're doing any meditative work. Don't go into low magic. Don't go into low transmissions. Go into the higher spectrum, because that's where the full light harmonics are. And when you navigate from the highest frequencies, you'll be able to see everything from more of a parallax view and observe everything and see exactly what's going on and see where the distortions are on the grid and on the planet. I think I've mentioned this before, but, before I was inducted, I was doing grid running. And that's really big, because what we were doing is running the grids of the holographic field of the planet. We were probably really pissing people off, actually, when I think about it, because we were running the grid, which is the full light spectrum grid, by the way. We were running and integrating a grid onto this world, which was full light ascension, which means we were helping flush out the evil. And I think that they probably didn't like that. I had no idea how much power that had, although I know it was working, and I have a sense, and I'm just one, okay? I know other people do things that are similar, but I had a nice little group, and we were very pure consciousness-oriented, and we did a good job, and we didn't spend a whole lot of time doing this. I mean, it was like 20 minutes grid running, and it was all we needed to do, just to run the grids of the planet, to flush it all out. But when I think about it, I'm thinking, man, because if they're running all these distortion patterns, which I know they're doing, and interference patterns, they must have hated that. So that's another reason probably they went after me to some degree. As many of you know, everything is frequency-based. We're frequency-based. We're harmonic-based. Everything can either appear through frequency or be cloaked through frequency, and that includes ships of light. When I say ships of light, I'm talking about celestial craft. I'm talking about galactic, celestial, multiversal craft, beings. A lot of the time, the craft itself is actually the extraterrestrial, what we call the off-worlder. And I'm not talking about grays and reptiles here. I'm talking about off-world celestials. These are the good guys, by the way. But their ships are always cloaked by frequency. And the one thing that I'd like to say is that I know, and I'm very clear, that the ships are interconnected. It's a symbiotic relationship, something like what they do in the Black Space Program. But this is the full light. These are the ascended machines. And they're very consciousness-oriented. They're healing. They work on healing the body. They're not negative at all. But they understand how to cloak, and they're very intelligent. They're not going to sit there and let themselves get attacked with lasers on Earth. These are the ships that are kind of running incognito. And these are the ones that are very hard to detect, because they can cloak and make themselves look like a natural anomaly, a natural galactic kind of anomaly, so that people who are trying to measure them, whether it's a covert surveillance program or military program, would not understand or know what they're looking at through frequency. So those are pretty cool. I wanted to touch on those a little bit, because before I was inducted, I was doing a lot of work with that transmission and those beings, and I'm very clear that there are different species out there. I don't go into la-la land about this. I'm just aware. I'm aware because of my soul extensions, because of my multidimensional design, because once you start merging with these full light universal energies, you start to see and understand that there's a bigger spectrum out there. So Now, that's just one. So when people say they see these big black triangles, yeah, we all know that that's manufactured. A lot of it's manufactured with the Black Space Program. I'm a little leery of some of these crafts that hover and don't really do anything strategically. I don't like the showing of things. Like, it's almost like they're trying to show off. That doesn't strike me as a real extraterrestrial or off-worlder. They don't need to show off. They already know everything. They don't need to play these games. So you have to ask yourself what's going on with that. It's kind of like driving your Cadillac down a road, you know. Who are you trying to impress, buddy? I'm more impressed if I can get on the ship and look through it and see what it really has to offer. But that's another scenario altogether, right? But, yeah, a lot of these things, if you can physically see them, usually they're manufactured in the Black Space Program, but not to say that we don't have true celestial craft that is visible and sometimes takes on the form of other things. Also, I do know that it's given to you according to your belief. In other words, we are dealing with a holographic planet, holographic universe, and we manifest it with our reality. So if you have belief systems, what you see, if it's an off-world or a celestial design work, it will show up according to your belief systems. If you want to believe, and that's the same thing when you transfer out too, by the way, into the false matrix or the holographic matrix. You know, if you believe in a certain God, it's going to show up as that. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. It's going to show up. It's still the same transmission of energy. You are the mirror image to your destiny. In other words, whatever you project is what you're going to create. Now, I don't know if I really like that a whole lot because I'd rather be merged with the full light universe myself. I mean, when I transfer out, I don't want to go into this false matrix where, okay, so I believe in Jesus or I believe in this or I believe in that, and therefore it's going to show up in my transfer. Well, then that's just a false matrix because it's only showing up because I believe it, but I need something more than that. And the more would equate to the full light universe where you're letting go of the false matrices and programs and you're surrendering to the full light universe and you ascend out of the programming and go back to source where you come from. That's how you break the orbit. That's how you break the cycle of false reincarnations and all this stuff that they've been doing to keep you subjected to false patterning. And I can get into more details with that at some point in the continuum, but I think it's really important that people look at that. So, a lot of stuff has been, I've covered a lot on Montauk over the years and interviewed a few people here and there. I've known people who knew Al Billick personally. I've known people who sat in the chair, the one that Preston Nichols had, and they were completely just a disaster afterwards. So I do know there's something going on with psychotronic warfare and frequency and how that's affecting people psychologically. And I think if people haven't done the spiritual work, if they sit in that chair at the time that they were having Montauk, if they were not prepared spiritually, they would not be able to handle the transmission, and they would probably flake out and go and literally just shatter. So astrally, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And I see a lot of that. I don't think a lot of people were prepared to deal with that transmission. What you're dealing with here on the timeline is a lot of full light universal energies that's bombarding the planet through ascension, that's actually assisting in raising the vibratory rate of the occupants on this planet, all life forms. And if it can't raise the vibration of the beings here, you'll notice them acting psychotic. You'll notice them that they're losing it. They can't hold the light. They can't hold the frequency because they're so contaminated and so fractured and so just patterned and dysfunctional that they're not able to hold that and anchor that frequency and transmission. So you will see that on and off here on the timeline. You understand that we are dealing with multidimensional design. And what reminds me of is the Montauk, where you have to be really powerfully clear in order to be able to navigate with a technological program that's incredibly powerful to your psyche. I can tell you point blank, if I were to sit in a chair like that, I'd have it under control in 2 seconds without any arrogance. Very good at things like these things, really good at navigating, and I understand technology. I know how to ride technology out very, very well. It's probably one of my best gifts, I guess, in the illusion of. Of course, back in the old days with Montauk and the Philadelphia experiments, they were literally creating, they were cloaking their radar. They were literally trying to they were trying to make their ship invisible to radar. That was the whole object behind it. And that's already being done. So a lot of the things that are going on now with anomalies and black technology, it's invisible to radar. A lot of things are invisible to radar. That's nothing new. So this stuff has been mastered, for a long time now. I think the biggest concern I have right now is just watching this planet get contaminated and the people, of course. And I think the chemtrails really need to be addressed. They talk about disclosure. Once again, like I said before, we need to talk about the tactical hardware disclosure, psychotronic disclosure, the misuse of technology in general. And also, chemtrails are aerial warfare. We look at it. That's warfare. That's chemical warfare, biochemical warfare. Now, if they they start dispersing, vaccines or something like that, where they're, creating an aerosol to spray everybody. And they've done that before. It's nothing new. Once again, this is inexcusable. You're not a subject to their shit. You're not subject to what they're doing, even though they try to make you believe that. That's where we have to stand up and say, hey, you know what? We've had enough of this. Enough is enough. That's enough of this crap. And so I think it's just awareness, and you don't want your kids breathing that, do you? I don't even know if people are breathing anymore, to be honest with you. I think that, that's another thing. You look and see how many people are just completely dispatterned, and I call them dispatterned because they're losing their patterning, their holographic patterning. Are just fractured people. I don't see them as really having children, and if they do, it's dangerous because they're so broken to begin with that they have no business raising children, especially in these countries that are like third world. It's embarrassing. They can't be breeding like that. No offense, folks, but you can't do that. You're just creating more problems. Don't bring something into the world you're going to torture and harm and manipulate and abuse. You've got to stop that cycle. You've got to stop that cycle. That's all there is to it. Let's see here. What else do I want to cover? Oh, my goodness. I talked about a lot of things the past hour here. I've got about another hour to go. And, of course, I'll be back next week. So, in the illusion of. Let's see here. A lot of people like to, I don't know if I want to talk about that. Well, I guess I could. Yeah. I think that, a lot of people like to summon things. And there's that saying, don't ever summon something you can't banish, right? So be careful what you do in your ritual work, your circle work, where you're summoning things. I've always been able to bring things into my circle that are productive. The Psychotronic Warfare program was not part of that. It's not part of being a mystical scientist. It's not part of being anything pertaining to the craft. That was just a tactical assault program, period. It doesn't matter who I was or what I was. That's just their technology being misused and abused. It has nothing to do with any of the work that I was doing. As a matter of fact, the time I was getting inducted, I was doing phenomenally powerful work, positive work that would be very beneficial to everybody. So, but I do notice that a lot of people, what I call amateurs, don't know what they're doing, whether it's whatever belief system they have, and especially I see a lot of that in the craft these days. I don't know what to say about it. I love the craft. I love the ancient craft. That's why I put John Storm on a lot, because he's an elder. He's an old. He knows the craft. He knows mysticism. He knows witchcraft in general. And like myself, we are the old ones. We're the ones, what I call the ancient ones, who've been around multiple lifetimes. We carry a lot of data with us, but if you go into regular Wicca or regular craft work, it's pretty, and there's some nice little ceremonies they do, but it's not what I do, and it's not what he does. And the more I evolve into mysticism and consciousness and alchemy, I realize that somewhere along the way, the ancient teachings got either watered down or edited, just like everything else. And what we're doing is picking up those pieces and using the full light Akashic to recreate and actually fulfill what was lost. So a lot of us who are here are trying to do that anyway, and it is working. But you have to take everything with a grain of salt when you're working in the field of magic. Like I said, it can be used for positive or negative or whatever you want to do. I know a lot of witches just treat it as a neutral energy, which means they don't send positive, they don't send negative, they just keep it neutral. I think that's a good idea to some degree. But I also see a lot of people who really just dress up and look like witches but aren't really craft-oriented, and that's kind of annoying to me. They look the part, they've got the cloaks, and they look, I love my cloaks too, don't get me wrong. I have my own agenda with craft cloaks and things, but you have to go deeper than that, is what I'm trying to say. And you have to go beyond the imagery and what I call the props. You have to go beyond it all and look within on a multidimensional scale, and you have to start working in that multidimensional, and not just the astral, the lower astral, or with the spirits. A lot of people think that these dead people just want to hang out around you when you're doing ceremony. That's not the case, man. When they transfer out, they're gone, and you usually have to make an appointment to have them connect in. You don't just sit there and bother people and summon them and ask them to come visit you. You have to make sure, just like anything else, if somebody wants to contact me, they need to call me. They need to make an appointment. They don't just summon me. I'm not just going to show up. You have to be respectful to those who have transferred out, respectful to the spirit world, walk gently on this earth is what we say a lot because there's a lot here. Now, it's hard to walk gently in a battlefield sometimes because what I've seen is this world is a huge battlefield. I mean, there's like a Pandora's box that's been opened up, and there's some really evil, what I call evil entities being released. But they're no match for full light celestials. They're no match for beings like me. We can take them out easy. Entities are very easy to destroy. You know why? Because they don't have souls. So, if they don't have souls, they're like toast. That's part of the thing where I think that the reason that they're trying to control and manipulate the masses here on this level is because you have a soul. Most of you do, not all of you. But if you do have a soul, yeah, that's powerful. That's immortal. So, yeah, they don't like that, but that's too bad because they're the ones that are really going to be, suffering in the end, in the illusion of. So, but anyways, I just thought I'd mention that real quick because I do see some of that going on, and I have a love for the craft. I love magic. I love mysticism. And I don't hide what I'm into in any form of design because it's something that's very empowering and it's very positive. It's just like martial arts. It's something wonderful if you use it with the right way. You have to use things with respect, integrity, wisdom, enlightenment, and you're fine. A lot of people don't have that. They don't move from the higher self when they're in areas of working with covens or working with the craft in general. You'll see a lot of people who are into the craft who are not connected to their higher selves. And if you're not connected to your higher self, then you're taken over by entities. And the entities are deciding everything around you. Now, entities don't have any clout where I come from, but I just see people being controlled by that. And there are techniques you can do to clear out the entities. I have a clearing of entities that I really like to use, and it works really well. It won't work on Psychotronic Warfare very well, but it certainly works on, the reason I say that is because they're piggybacking off your electricity in your brain to attack you. So it's not like you're being possessed by a spirit. It's actually technological hardware, so it's a little harder to clear out the technological hardware because it's feeding off of your electrical circuitry and your brain activity. So let's see what else I want to talk about. Let's see. And of course, I think when John was on my show this wasn't the recent show, but we talk a little about wards, stone wards. These are things that are used on the property to protect the home against evil spirits, entities, or people. And if you're into the craft or mysticism or spirituality in general, what we do is we set up these things, and they can be made from anything from wood to stones to visuals in the etheric realms. You can actually set a psychic shield up. You don't have to even create anything physically on your property. You can actually set a psychic shield up. A lot of people set things around where you can create parameters around your property where you actually can use basil. Basil and water is really good to bless and exorcise the area, so that you negate negative, evil entities or things that would be harmful to your property or you or your animals. So that's what the stone wards are about, or wards in general. They're charged through consciousness, through magic, through spirituality, and whatever you use through your ritual to fortify it. Sometimes it's through guardians. Sometimes you can work with the Norse gods or beings that are ascended. And use these things for shields because those symbols are really powerful. It's how you use the symbols that actually help you. So this is something that if you're having a hard time sleeping, maybe your property feels a little erratic, or there's creepy, crawly people around, you don't know. Just set the intent at nighttime and in the morning or whenever. I would say towards the evening, and to really set your parameters up psychically. Set a shield around and keep things shielded so that you're not being impacted. And you'll notice a difference, and you'll notice a little bit more peace around you and around your environment. I think nowadays, the beauty of the land is that the land will suffer if the people are not kind to it. In other words, it reminds me of King Arthur in Excalibur. If the land dies, the people die, the land dies. Well, that's how it was with King Arthur anyway. But you see that a lot because I've always, in the old days, I used to when I was walking through neighborhoods, I'd walk around and I'd see people's yards, and some would look really healthy and some would look really bad. And that would always be a representation of the energy of the person that was living in the house. And I'm thinking to myself, that you can tell these people are not, either they're sick physically or spiritually, or something's going on with entities because the property looks like it's suffering. It's just not healthy. And it needs nurturing. It needs spiritual nurturing. You can always tell when there's garden divas around and fairy energy and fairy magic, because the flowers bloom, it's really bright, You have beautiful trees that are healthy, and the spirit world is content. Let's put it that way. Nature spirits are content. The elementals are content, and you will notice this as you walk through different types of properties and people. So take time to set up a magical garden. I've always set up a magical garden. I have little gnomes, and I used to love roses. I used to plant a lot of roses. I still love roses. Where I live right now, they're really hard to grow. But literally just, plant things around you that would be nurturing and healing, and also very aesthetically pleasing to what we call the nature spirits, because nature spirits are connected to the earth. I mean, they're connected to energy, plant kingdom, mineral kingdom, animal kingdom. You will notice that the more you do that, the more you bring in more positive energy and healing energy with animals, they feel more comfortable in your yard or in your environment because of the vibration, the loving energies, the dedication, the soul connection. Once again, we're multidimensional beings, and with that comes a concept of understanding other dimensional spaces and respecting those dimensional spaces as well. So this is why magic's very important, because those of us who understand real magic understand how everything is magic. Everything around us is energy, consciousness, life forms. Sure, there's cranky whatever here and there. Everybody gets cranky once in a while, but not necessarily evil. So what you're doing when you're working with these elementals is helping them, and they help you in turn. It's ebb and flow. We all work together because we're all multidimensional. We're all energy and consciousness, and that's really how it's supposed to work. So I like to touch on that a little bit because the magical garden and the magical house is really big. When you have a magical home, everything is clear, energetically speaking. The boogies are gone out of the house. I mean, if you find your light bulbs are breaking all the time, you either are very charged psychically, or you have some kind of an intruder in your house, or a big change is coming. I mean, these are just cues to you that something's going on. You need to pay attention to it. Make sure your home is clean, and try not to be try not to keep it cluttered, because, as I mentioned this in my book, if your home is cluttered, then that means your mind is cluttered to some degree. You have to keep things organized. Try to get rid of the old and bring in the new. You have things that are hanging in your closet forever and ever and ever. Get rid of them. What are you holding on to them for? I always say, try not to be a hoarder. Don't be selfish. Let that stuff go. If it's not serving you, you're not using it anymore. Let it move on. And that will really open up the energy for new beginnings and new energy. And that's really important. So I touched on that. I think I touched on it a little bit in my first book, Transmutation Through Ascension. But it's really important that people do these things. I'm not saying you give everything away, but do a kind of a clearing in your house. Look around and see what you have. I see so many people with clutter. I don't know how they live like that. I can't stand it. I guess I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm very analytical, and I like clean houses. And, I can understand, having a little pile of a mess once in a while, but I'm really not like that at all. I tend to like things orderly. I almost like, I am orderly. That's all there is to it. That's just the way I am. So, but with that comes, clarity, on many different levels. That's just how I function. So I guess I'm one of those people, too, that if you have, not obsessive compulsive to say, but if you have pictures that are like slanted, that bothers me. Not because it's like, there's nothing wrong with wanting things to be straight, that's just all there is to it. But some people just don't pay attention to things like that. So create your magical house. Take time to really bless your home. Create a magical space for yourself, for your family, for your animals. I use crystals a lot. I touched on that, of course, the last week with my other archive. We touched on crystals. And, of course, you can use those. And animals love crystals. My cat, my dog is esoteric, but my cat is really a circle kitty. He's big on esoteric. I mean, he's like smells magic. He's around the house, whether it's incense or it's meditation. That boy knows, and he wants to be involved in it. I mean, that's how cats are. They're very much protectors and psychic messengers to some degree. And of course, temple kitties kitties are very sacred in Egypt. The cat energy is very, very powerful energy. So are dogs, with Anubis, of course, and they both have they're both special, and they have their special frequencies. And once again, when you look at the animal kingdom, I'd like to think, everybody wants to believe animals come from the world, and they come from Earth, and well, they're extraterrestrials too, and they exist in different forms, and they're part of their own extraterrestrial line. So, they're not just from here, and they are intelligent. They do contain consciousness, and they do have souls, even though people don't want to accept that, because that would mean that they're harming something that has a soul. But literally, they do have spirits and souls, and we all know that. So, take time to bless your animals, keep them safe too. They have to be on good diets, just like everybody else. just like you should be. Try to do organic if you can. Keep your dogs. My dog is unorganic. I mean, if I feed him anything that's meat oriented, which I don't eat meat, but I'm not going to make my dog suffer. So he has organics. I mean, that's how it works. So, but it's not cheap. But everybody's like, well, your dog eats better than most people. Well, he is people. he's family. So that's fine by me. At least he had a good life with me. That's a lot of dogs don't have good lives. People are evil creeps. Sometimes I watch and see so much crap on that Facebook, and all these punks, these pieces of crap that go out and harm animals. Man, I hope they throw the book at those people. I really do. I can't stand people like that. People who are abusive to animals. That's my pet peeve. I can't stand it. And they're cursed by doing that. That's just a horrible thing. These poor little animals deserve much better. So I do hope they profile more and more when people are getting, when people try to adopt an animal that are just not capable of handling an animal with integrity and respect and love. So, not to digress, but you do want to keep your home magical. And, of course, you can do that through just blessing it. I'm big on candles, too. Candles are good. When you're into the craft, in magic, mysticism, alchemy, whatever, you'll notice that more people are attracted to candles and candle magic, and not necessarily in the sense that you have to sit there and meditate around a candle all day. It's just about the energy and the transmission, the color, certain colors associated with certain days, sometimes certain astrological influences or intent behind what you want. It's really nice to have candles around, especially if you're working on healing, distant healing people, or blessing your home, sending prayer, whatever you want to do. It's always nice to have a candle burning. We have 7-day candles, which are really nice, that you can use. I like to use those. They have different colors. I mean, sometimes they can have whatever you want on them, whether it's Mother Mary or something else. That's a different angle. But it's just the regular ones, which are color, which are associated with chakras and also associated with what you want to bring in on a frequency transmission level. So those are nice. Burning a candle, and I always keep one. I usually keep a candle burnt all night long through my one of my 7-day candles, just because it blesses the home and it keeps intruders out. When I was hit with the psychotronic program, everything I did was being negated. I mean, they were attacking me. They didn't care if I was lighting candles. They were making a mockery of what I did. And that was all because it's a tactical hardware. It's not based on spirit. It's not a ghost. It's not a haunt. It's not a demon. It's not a god. It's just a bunch of idiots in a control room with a psychotronic program. So, but I learned to kind of override them and just say, screw you, buddy. This is the way it's going to be in my house. And, it takes a while for them to get entrained. Let's put it that way. But I think they kind of got it. I think they kind of got the message, didn't they? Let's see here. Where are we in time? The illusion of time. Okay, so I'm at 1:21 here, so I've got maybe a half an hour plus or minus. And it's hopefully you're getting something out of this one tonight. This is all about spirit and consciousness, of course. And I don't talk about this stuff all the time. I mean, I don't live in woo-woo land. I'm very grounded, but I do like to talk about mysticism because most people don't really talk about it to the level I do. This is still a 101, but I still like to dive in and kind of talk about a few things. So we'll do that. I talked about the conjuring of spirits, and I have conducted seances in the past, and they've been really productive, actually. When you do conduct a seance, you want to make sure somebody's there as a scribe and someone's there as the medium, so that you're able to bring in the data. Now, when I do these things, we're accessing the full Akashic usually for a database of information. And, I mean, sometimes you can ask for the spirit to show up, and sometimes you might get the spirit. I don't discount that at all, because sometimes they do have something to say. Sometimes they've transferred out and they want to make a message or create a message to the other side, which isn't really a side because it's all energy and consciousness, and it's real easy to communicate. The dead shall rise. They sure do. They rise in consciousness, and there is no distance in distance. I mean, when people transfer out, it's like going from one room to the next. It's a different dimensional space and frequency, but they're still accessible. But once again, you don't abuse the privilege of communicating with them either. So, but certainly if they want to show up, they'll show up if they have something to tell you. How many people have had spirits of relatives show up to help them? Maybe give them a message or tell them, to some degree that they love them. So that does happen. There's no doubt about that. I've seen spirits before that warned me of car accidents. I mean, one was right in the road. I mean, like solidified, and 2 people saw it. This was a long time ago, but I'm telling you, man, there are ghosts, there are apparitions that do show up, and I can tell you stories that I've been through before I was inducted. That's phenomenal. So, I mean, I've always had a paranormal flair to me. So, let's see what else we have here. So I did touch a little bit on the alchemy. Okay. And we talked a little about the covert technology, and I think I've touched enough on the covert technology to kind of make my point across with that. Once again, my website's Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives, and all of my books are on Amazon.com. So just, just go in there and dive in, I'm still working on some other future books, but I'm progressing there. So let's see what else I want to talk about here. I did talk a little bit about the CERN the last time, so I won't really touch much on that this time around, but it is quite the anomaly that's going on over there. So once they fire that up, we're going to have more and more anomalies across the board. I still think a lot of what's going on with these big sounds that people are hearing, like horns and trumpets and grinding trains, is connected to their inner earth. I think that's going on. And with CERN acting up, that could influence a more amplification and acceleration of that. Like I said, hold on for your ride, get your surfboard out and just learn to navigate, because it's going to be very, very interesting, without a doubt. I think CERN's a good thing. I don't see it as a bad thing. You have to let go of the fear. You have to let go of all the fear of the what ifs and remove that and just start moving to the next level. Worst case scenario is what? Everybody goes to another sector, right? We go to another destination, and your spiritual family will always be with you. And, the people that are your loved ones, your soulmates, your twin flames, whatever they are, they'll still be with you. Unless they're, I don't have any anymore. I had soulmates on certain timelines, and those are gone now, thanks to the band. Well, I had my soulmate husband that was ripped away, but he's with someone else now, so that's his own new reality, so that's done. So soulmates, they fulfill a mission together, and when that's done, that's done. If you're really bonded to your soulmate, then you'll see that person again. Usually you navigate to the next level with that person, and that's kind of important. A lot of people have partnerships like that. They have, they've been together for 60 years. A lot of people are married for a very long time, and that's a real good bond. So that's something that, goes on and on and on in ascended consciousness. If they're really wanting to stay together, they will do so. So that's where the soul mates come in, the soul groups come in. This twin flames and twin souls are very unique too. Twin souls are very interesting when they incarnate on. They both have a similar mission, and they work together on a higher frequency and transmission. But yeah, all these things that happen while we're here, it's really fascinating. We start to look at it from a multidimensional level. So let's see, what else is there? Well, I think the biggest thing also, as we talk about the implosion of what's going on with the world, that through the implosion there's an ascension factor happening, and true ascension, true planetary ascension, full light ascension tells us the Earth is becoming a star. I have a tendency to believe that at some point in the continuum. I don't believe we'll see it in this lifetime, but it will happen. And I mentioned the last podcast I did, or the archive I did, which is really just podcast, I guess you can call it that. Literally, that whole CERN episode, I mean, they can literally move this planet from one point to the next if they want to. If they start mastering the synthetic black hole technology, they can navigate. And that means they can open up, and we can be here, and then we can be in another sector in another multiverse if they know what they're doing. So I have to ask, do they know what they're doing? But you might wake up one day and realize you're in another neighborhood, in another galactic neighborhood. So that's kind of cool. I think it is anyway. I look at it as an adventure. I'm very adventurous anyway, so, it's kind of like, full speed ahead, everybody. Let's go. That's where I'm at, because I have planetary burnout here, and I think it's because of all the mundane stuff that goes on here. It's very boring to me. Once you get changed in consciousness, and once you start growing and evolving spiritually, and once you start being awakened to what's going on with even covert technology and the stuff that they've used on me, there's no way you can go back. There's no going back. I can't go back to the old ways. I can't go back to my old timelines. I can't go back to the old lives I have. That was a past life to me. But I can go forward and keep navigating in multidimensional design work. And I think that goes for everybody else. I mean, I don't even like to reflect on the past, because the past has already moved. I mean, it's already shifted. So, but I do talk about the technology because I understand what they're doing with it, which can really kind of create a lot of warps in people's lives that they don't necessarily need. So, and what else is there? Obviously, magnetic north is moving towards Siberia, so with that comes a lot of other things. And once again, this is all part of the way things are rolling. just pay attention to it. Be where you need to be, intuitively speaking. Try not to hold on to something just because it's monetary. A lot of people stay where they're at in states or countries because of how much money they're making, and your money's not going to mean anything in the end. Events in the illusion of time. So take care of yourself and follow your radar about where you want to be. That's really important. Yeah, a lot of people they're so stuck in finances. They're so stuck in the survival. It's really unfortunate. And I understand that too. We all need to make money and live in the illusion of, right? But truly, this planet is so warped. Some of the stuff that goes on this planet is way off base. It's a distraction. It's been a distraction for a long time. And I think that's pretty much it when it comes to what I wanted to talk about with that. Yeah, I think I'm going to switch gears here for the last, half an hour. Okay, here. So we're at Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven, and I have, today is April 18th, 2015. This is a pre-recorded show, and I have about 30 minutes left, plus or minus, for before the show ends. So let's go ahead and cover a few more details here. Once again, we're listener supported here at Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. So go ahead and donate to the station as guided, and we certainly appreciate that. So let's see. What do I want to talk about the last half hour of the show? I think I'd like to touch base on evil in general because we see so much of it. What constitutes evil? How does it get formulated? Why is there evil? Why is this happening on this ugly little timeline, which isn't really ugly, but they're making it ugly. And I will say one thing. I'm certain that evil is generated from lack of consciousness. Evil people who do evil things have no consciousness, have no conscious design connected to the full light universe, to source, what we call source, the creator. And call God whatever you want to call it, but I think the word God has been overused, misused, and abused for so long. It's been taken advantage of. When people say God, it's sort of they don't use it the way they should. Some of their gods are not really gods, false gods, false matrices. So it gets really kind of complex. But when push comes to shove, the highest form of infinite consciousness, the great cosmic mind, the full light source energy, is all enlightened. And doesn't have any of this evil agenda, personal will, personal spin. I see a lot of people who don't have any connection to spirituality and consciousness that are very evil. And that's how you can pretty much tell what creates it. Lack of universal chi, lack of universal connectedness, that's what creates evil deeds, evil people. They don't have anything but what's going on in the linear world. And a lot of them are disembodied entities. They don't even have souls. So I would say most souls are usually good deep down at the frequency level if you have a soul. If you don't have one, if you don't occupy one, if you weren't incarnated with a soul, you wouldn't be incarnated, because most of the time when people incarnate on a timeline, they have to have a soul benchmark. So entities don't incarnate. In case you haven't noticed, they take over people. They don't incarnate because they can't have bodies. So that's another thing. They're just kind of astral debris, if you ask me. That's why I see them anyway. And that goes for anything else that people like to pull out of their little magic box too. I mean, like the archons or the jinn, everybody likes to rave about in the Middle East. I don't think they're anything special. I don't think they're anything powerful. They're entities that cannot do anything unless they're using someone as a conduit or a vehicle. So that tells me that they're powerless, period. And that's the way it works. I mean, if you look at some of these people, these quote-unquote evil forces out there, they always have to manipulate somebody to get their deeds done. They can't do it themselves because they don't have the power, if you notice that. So they're really just kind of very disempowered, if you ask me. And I believe that's why people are jealous, or they're jealous, these entities, of souls and soul evolution, because they don't have that. I'm not sure what happened to them where their souls were negated from them, but I suspect it has something to do with maybe one timeline where they misused something very severely, where they lost that soul and never were able to regain it. I think that did happen to some of them. So once the soul is gone and evacuates, that's it. They're separate. That's my own take on it anyway. I did want to touch a little bit on the timeline bleed through too. There's a parallel bleed through effect I talk about in my book, Eye of the Remote. And what that means is, since we exist multidimensionally and there's a simultaneously, the timelines in the illusion of time, can actually bleed through from one dimensional space to the next. And that has a lot to do with frequencies and how close the dimensional spaces are. So you'll see that often, where the dimensions are so close together and they're becoming so close together through the ascension process that you will see a bleed-through effect. And sometimes this takes on the form of spirits, ghosts, and also UFO craft, where you'll actually see a bleed-through connecting through from another dimensional space that's really, really close to ours. That happens often. So I did want to touch base on that a little bit. So next time you witness something or you're wondering what's causing that, sometimes it can be the parallel bleed-through effect. Now, what's interesting about that is there are many, many universes and star systems, multiverses. It's infinite. And, of course, you can have a planet very, very close to ours in a parallel dimension that can actually bleed through transmission and consciousness onto this world. And I believe that's actually happening. So a lot of people are looking for the Planet X. I still think that what they're picking up on is a dimensional space that's very close to ours with a huge anomaly, which you could call probably a planet that's foreboding energetically next to ours, that's causing a lot of rifting right now. So that's my own take. You can take it with a grain of salt, but I'm very, very clear that multidimensional navigation and accessing these portals and wormholes would indicate that that's what's going on. So once again, it's hard to prove these things, but you do see, and once you start, what I would suggest if you're interested in what I'm talking about is try to remote view it and try to look at it from a multidimensional sight instead of what you're being told. And it does change things, and it does show you what's really going on with your psychic vision. So something to chew on. I talk a little bit about the holographic ceiling insofar as everything being holographic, multidimensional and holographic. The planet's holographic, the universe is holographic. Everything is a manifestation through energy and consciousness. And to some degree, the holographic ceiling on this planet and the illusion of a planet has been weaponized. And that's what you're seeing also is a lot of the weaponization of everything, weaponization of people's brains. Technology has just become insane. Instead of going in the positive direction, it's going in the weaponization, militarized direction. So it's all taking its form in different manifestations. So something that you might want to look into if it feels like it's affecting you in a negative way, and learn to navigate away from it. And also change the dynamic, because everything changes. Nothing is set in stone. Everything is constantly morphing and mutating. You're constantly changing. You're constantly shifting. There's nothing that's ever really solid in the illusion of solids. Everything's in flux. The one thing I noticed as things progress and as vibrations increase, everything becomes vibratory, and you start to see the vibration. You can actually start to see things vibrate. Buildings, people, plants, trees. Everything becomes a visual, but it becomes like it becomes a pattern. Let's put it that way. That's the only way I can describe it. So that's something that kicks you into another orbit with your multidimensional sight, and that's part of the ascension process as well. Let's see. When you look around and see what's going on in America right now, all our resources are getting kind of sucked away. Obviously, there's intrusions and infiltrations with corrupt cabals and organizations we don't want here. And of course, the time will come when people are gonna have to do something about it. We'll just have to kind of ride these tides out. But at some point in the continuum, you really have to try to turn it around as best you can through your own mind and consciousness is a start. Also, you look at the elements. I talked about the elementals earlier. I talked about the fairies and the mineral kingdom, the fairy kingdom, plant kingdom. And, the trees are huge, and of course trees are really they're taking a beating right now here on the planet. I mean, the forests, all the beautiful forests, rainforests are really taking a hit due to man's negligence and abuse and a privilege that he's had to even be on this world. He's abused the privilege of being here. Let's put it that way. If he can't even take care of this planet, he certainly won't be able to take care of any other one. He's failed as far as I'm concerned. So that's, I love trees, and I mention the trees a lot. They tell a story, they actually, I've talked about how they can communicate through their own, the root system to other trees. And, you look and see how old they are and how ancient some of these trees are. I mean, they have a lot of history in them. They have a lot of cellular memory, and they have a connection to what I call our celestial sky ancestors, because, before mankind, I mean, you have to look and see what was here before man showed up on the map. And all of these things that have been here before mankind actually have a cellular recall and a cellular memory. And even if you think they're inanimate, they actually do have an archive, an Akashic. So it's really interesting. Our very good psychic, a very good intuitive psychic, and a good remote viewer can actually work with these elements and work with these trees and work with these inanimate objects, or what you would consider inanimate, and actually be able to read the transmission. And, you know, it's a shame to me, it's shameful for me to see the trees getting cut down the way they are. I know we're suffering, we have a lot of beetle kill, especially out in Colorado has a lot of beetle kill. And some of it's chemtrail, some of it's beetle kill. And it's just terrible to see how many trees get cut down, how much of history is getting erased, and the good history, the good historical things insofar as the elements go. So I think that's really a shame, because we could have avoided a lot of this if mankind didn't have this urge to control and manipulate everything through weather manipulation and everything else that he's done to destroy this world, you know, right down to fracking and everything else that's unnecessary, the drilling for oil. You know, the oil is the blood of the earth as far as I'm concerned. And there are other ways. We had free energy. We still have free energy. People want to argue that. Well, we have patents out the wazoo for it, so don't tell me we don't have free energy. We do. And it's starting to bleed through now, but we could have avoided this path. I guess that's the main message I want to get across. Mankind could have avoided this entire route had he just sucked it up and stood down and worked on a higher level of consciousness instead of his ego. And he or she, whatever it is, doesn't even matter. But I see that, and I'm sure everybody else sees that as well. So, you know, next few months will be very interesting. This summer should be very interesting at the rate things are going with the Earth, the way things are being poisoned. It should be very interesting. But in the meantime, while this is going on, as we stand up, we have to kind of counter it through consciousness as well. So yes, we address it. Yes, we counter it. But also start taking care of you, your garden, your spiritual lifestyle, your family, fortifying yourselves mentally, physically, spiritually. And, you know, plant a garden. You know, Hawk has some great seed packets. Start doing something where you can actually be independent of the system, you know, where you're not relying on their poisons. I mean, organic food is great, and it's great to grow your own food. In the old days, everybody I knew had a garden. Everybody I knew was planting. They had preserves. They had, you know, fruits and trees, and, you know, the trees, you could just go in there and grab an apple off a tree and you wouldn't worry about it, you know, or peach or something. You didn't have a problem with chemicals and all the crap they have nowadays. I mean, everything was so clean. And, of course, now it's all contaminated. You know, I don't trust a lot of it. You know, really, it's like decontamination before you even touch anything. The fish are really, you know, I really love fish. I used to really like fish, and I'm really leery of eating anything like that now because of what happened with Fukushima. And, of course, let's not forget the BP accident, which happened, that was actually on my birthday. I believe it was April 20th. I forget what year it was now. I think it was 2010 or so. No, I forget what year it was. Don't quote me on the year. But, I mean, honestly, that never failed. I mean, that's just an infestation of pollution and contamination of the environment right there. So all these things have been a slow kill to the earth, a slow kill to mankind. And nobody seems to care. All they care about is their moments of having billions of dollars and doing what they need to do. For example, D.C. taking all these vacations there, unnecessary. I mean, literally milking the account like you wouldn't believe over there in D.C. It's just ridiculous. It's kind of like, once again, it's abuse of power and the illusion of power. So it's very disconcerting to even look and see these ass clowns that are trying to run for office. I mean, really? I'm not interested in having any of these ass clowns in D.C. anymore, because D.C. is a foreign country. It's its own little country inside the United States that's infiltrated the American people and has poisoned. We really need to reset that whole area, and that's my suggestion is to reset it, because you can't keep these criminals there anymore. We've got to get them out. We've got to flush them out like the cockroaches they are. I get tired of the Clintons. I get tired of the Bushes. I get tired of everybody there, you know, the Fresh Prince from D.C., the whole scenario. I'm sick of a lot of them. I'm tired of the Congress, the corruption in Congress. Everybody's fed up. I mean, I can go down the list of how disappointing they are, but, you know, I don't have any expectations of people, so therefore I'm not disappointed. But I will tell you, when you're in the illusion of power and you're there to try to make decisions based on bettering a world or bettering a country, you have to have qualified people who are capable of doing these things. These people are never qualified. It's a boys' club. It's a girls' club. It's a popularity contest. It's a complacency contest. These people are programmed. They don't have consciousness. They don't understand evolution. They're illiterate. I can't believe how illiterate they are. I mean, they think they're intelligent. They're stupid as a box of rocks. So, where do we go with them, right? I'm on the wrong planet, folks. I think a lot of other people are too. But there are some nice people here. What is it the Angel of Death says? There's that nice little card on birthdays that says, I'm just here for the cake. It's kind of how I feel. I'm just here for the pizza, the cake. I used to like Coca-Cola a long time ago before they started using the crap, and I don't touch it now. I used to really like, in the old days you get pizza and a soda, but things have changed so dramatically, and so it's just so weird. Yeah. So anyways, I guess that's almost it. Let's see here. We're about 15 minutes before. I'm trying to figure out, I'm calculating this, so I know we have breaks that are set up in between during my show, and I don't think really that much, so I'm going to go for maybe 10 more minutes, and then we should be good. So, once again, you're listening to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven, and these are my my pre-recorded shows for while I'm doing my own thing on my birthday and breaking orbit and getting away from just having to do live radio, just for a little bit anyway. And I have a lot of things I need to do, and unfortunately, the radio kind of takes everybody's time. It really does take a lot of time because I have other things that are going on. I've really started getting into training again, and really need to take care of my health. Everybody needs to take care of their health, and not just me. I'm just saying that I need to focus on things. I can't be at a computer 24 hours a day. The one downside of when I worked surveillance was that I was always at a computer, in monitors with lots of screens,
Everyone, that's all the time we have tonight, and Solaris will be back live next Saturday. Stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with the amazing Dave and Mecky.
Listening to Revolution Radio.